Take your 5 stacks and suck on it. And welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today's video will be high priority targets. This is a video in a series of videos that we have on high priority targets. Covers all sorts of things from Omicrons to Zetas, and specifically today we're going to be looking at Conquest Datadisks. I know that it's not necessarily everybody's favorite topic, but it is a game changer. If you get the right Datadisks, you can go and punch up so much higher than your roster is capable of. And I'm going to provide some information for you guys today that's really going to make that possible. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, so first and foremost, let me go ahead and change to the correct thing here. So we're going to talk about this kind of in two different ways. I am going to, first of all, break down the teams that I use most heavily in Conquest. You saw a little bit of an example of that in the opening clip that we had here. And then I'm going to break down the data disks that I look for and I try to use to really maximize these teams and make them work against anything that you're going to see. So first and foremost, I have these first 3 teams here. 2 of them are GLs, one of them is not. It might as well be a GL with Skywalker though here. But you can see we have the gas team. All of these teams rely heavily on the fact that they attack out of turn. On top of that, there are a lot of crits. So you can see with all 3 of these teams, there's going to be quite a few crits that happen. JML team's a little bit different because of all the true damage that they do, but there's still a ton of out-of-turn attacks between these top 3. Our 4th one works the same way. CLS, tons and tons and tons of attacks out of turn. They absolutely crit all the time. Grievous, this may not be a team that you would think would work, but it does. So the fact that B1 attacks out of turn so frequently, Magna Guard counters so frequently, Wat Tambor is also attacking out of turn frequently, there's a ton of attacks out of turn. So these are our key teams that we have here. Now there are other teams that can work really well with some of the data disks that we're going to talk about, but these are the big ones. This attacking out of turn element is super duper huge. Also, I want to point out some of the different characters we have on these teams and the role. I'll get to why that is in a second. But Echo, support character. Rex, support character. Padme, support character. Hermit Yoda, support. Barris, healer. I'm totally spacing right now. I can't remember whether he's a support or whether he's an attacker. He's an attacker. I couldn't remember. I know he's an attacker. Yeah, okay, so most of those are attackers. Not as much applicable to CLS team. And then down here, ditto, we have not as much here, but a lot of supports on some of these teams. That's going to be an important thing here in a moment. All right, with that being said, let's go ahead and, one moment here, we're going to switch over and talk a little bit about some of the different data disks. So let me go ahead and switch screens. All right, let me full screen this so you guys can see a little bit better. There we go. All right, so unfortunately they didn't do a true post of this, so we have to try to find the screenshots from Discord. It's kind of annoying. But anyway, we're going to talk about some of these data disks that really help for some of these attack out of turn teams. Like I said, they're going to benefit other teams as well. For instance, I run Troopers as well. My Troopers aren't as strong, but Troopers really benefit from this. My Sith Empire team benefits a lot from it as well, especially with Malgus. Just not as much as those teams that I just showed you. All right, so we're going to do just kind of a general run through of this stuff, and I'm going to point out what's really important as we get through this. Unbreakable, this is a new one that they came out with. I do have an Unbreakable one. I have not applied it yet. This is good if you are trying to punch up, like if you got low relic teams and you really want them to punch up at the upper levels of the sectors. It is going to be worthwhile, similar to Vitality that we had before. If you have high relic teams, though, you're not going to need this as much. Ceresu form. We're not going to talk a whole lot about this because it's basically a requirement. If you want to be able to get max crate, you're going to pretty much have to get this. You're going to have to use it. But it is really nice. It is very helpful in terms of if you have a tanky team that counterattacks a lot. Unfortunately, there's not a ton of counterattacking with JMK unless you get the Retribution buff. In that case, it does work very, very well. Still, it's a legendary. It's pretty good. Next up, we've got Fortified. This is one I actually got, and I think it is pretty good. Not amazing, though. Pretty good. Now, we're starting to get into some of our stuff that I really like, which is our 1-dot Datadisks. Ruthless Defense. So I do have a Ruthless Defense one. I have the Epic one. I haven't gotten a rare one of this. I think it's pretty good. It makes the team a lot tankier in the long run. So if you're in a really long, difficult battle, for instance, if you've got JMK and you're facing the Inquisitors, because the Inquisitors suck so bad in this Conquest, this is a really good one to have. It makes it much, much more difficult for them to kill you over the long haul of the battle. Is it my number one choice on Datadisks? No. Is it a good one to have because it's a 1-dot? Yes. If you see it, grab it. You're not going to be disappointed. Unbreakable. We talked about Unbreakable earlier. Pretty good if you're trying to punch up. All right, now we're getting into the stuff I really like. Defensive Formation. This is, in my opinion, your number one top priority Datadisk to get. It is a game changer, especially with the teams that I just mentioned. So if you get the Epic one, which unfortunately I have not gotten the Epic one yet. I have 2 of the rares. Whenever an ally attacks out of turn, all allies recover 6% protection. If you have a protection-heavy team like Gas, and you put 1, if not 2 of these suckers on, it's going to be really hard for them to kill you. Really, really, really hard to kill you. Amazing Datadisk. Absolute game changer. If you see it, get it. I usually hold off if I see a common one. I don't grab the common one right away. Rare or Epic, I do get, though. It's worth it. Master's Technique, I don't usually get. I don't find them that amazing. I'm sure if you've got really, really high relics across the board, if you're a whale, this is probably pretty good. It doesn't help me that much, though, because I have Relic 5 at max usually with most of my teams, aside from the requirements and such. Blindside is pretty good. Again, it's an out-attack turn-based thing, but for me, it's got 2 dots, similar to Master's Technique. I just don't think it's worth it. It doesn't provide enough for 2 dots. Stacking Fervor, on the other hand, is worth 2 dots, and I do go for this whenever I can get it. It's very, very good. A lot of times in why am I blanking? In Conquest, there we go. In Conquest, you're going to have long, drawn-out battles, and you're going to want something that's going to stack that offense that you have. And again, out of turn attacks based teams, like what I just mentioned earlier at the beginning of the video, you're going to get a ton of bonus offense here, and you're going to really, really improve because of it. Quick Reflexes, I do have one of these. They suck. I don't know what else to say. Don't waste your time. It's good for some of the feats that you have to get. Outside of that, I don't think it's worth very much. Booming Voice is very good. That's been here before. Nothing crazy on that. It is 4, though. I don't typically use it because that is very costly, and it's really dependent on your leader. So, with the teams that we have, I don't think it's that amazing, especially because it's limited to during their turn. Now, if it wasn't during their turn and you could use that with Gas, oh dear God, it'd be ridiculous. Unfortunately, that's not the case, though. Deadly Catalyst. This one, however, if I get it, I put it on. All allies ignore 30% of the enemy's protection and gain 30% offense, and there is more to this. Basically, there are different levels of when they lose health, and it triggers different things. This works so well with the builds that I run, where you're attacking out of turn constantly, because you're just always going through the protection and hitting health. And you'll see with some of the stuff that we do, as they lose health, as enemies lose health, you start to stack more things, and it becomes really, really powerful really, really quickly. Speaking of which, Ruthless Speed. Ruthless Offense. Get them. When an enemy falls below 100% health, all allies gain blah, 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 blah. I have the top one for speed. I also have the top one for offense. 22% turn meter, 13% offense. We talked about it before. If you have Deadly Catalyst, as soon as you take a turn, you're going to gain for your team 22% turn meter, 13 offense right off of the bat. On top of the gains that you're getting here with 30% offense. You are going to slap so hard with these 3 and go fast, plus the stacking fervor that I mentioned earlier. Your offense is going to go through the roof. You're going to be blowing up teams. You saw it in the opening clip. It's amazing. It's so much fun. Potency calibration, junk. I do grab it because they have it there all the time. I end up having to get 1 just because I have nothing else better to get. But it's junk. Don't get it. Ability exhaust. If you're trying to build a caustic recurrence type team, then it's good. I don't ever build that team. I haven't been able to get a caustic recurrence yet. But it does have its uses. It's not a bad one. War of Attrition. This one's pretty good. Once per turn, whenever a debuff expires on an enemy, all enemies lose 4% turn meter. Again, this is primarily if you are using a debuff heavy Datadisk setup. Don't recommend it with teams that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. It would work well with, for instance, Bounty Hunters. It would work well with Empire. Different things like that. More debuff heavy teams. But in my experience, the debuff heavy teams, they struggle a lot more. They just don't tend to have the offense that you need to really hit through a lot of these top tier teams. Caustic Recurrence, I have not gotten this yet, unfortunately. I'd love to see it and see what it can do. But it says when a debuff on an enemy expires, they gain damage over time for 2 turns, which can't be resisted or evaded. So again, very similar to Caustic Emissions that we had before. Doesn't fit with the teams that I've discussed at the beginning, but it is very good. Protection Recovery. This isn't a bad one. I don't get it just because I prefer other ones, but if you're running teams that are heavy on buffs, it can be a good one. Entrenched is very, very, very good. If you get it, grab it. I have not seen any Entrenched at all yet, and I'm all the way through. So kudos to you if you can find them. Notice, though, that they do count for 2 now, not 1. Not as good as it used to be. Massively Overpowered, still a really, really, really good legendary if you're running a buff-heavy team. Like I said, I try to balance my teams a little bit so they're not always super buff-heavy and buff-dependent. So I don't usually prefer this one unless I don't have any other choice. Volatile Accelerator, throw it away. It's absolutely terrible. Decay, critical turn meter, throw it away. Terrible. Critical Formation and Critical Support. I do grab at least the Critical Formation. Whenever an ally scores a critical hit on an enemy, all enemies get 8 to 12% protection. I usually try to find the 12% one, and what I do is I couple it with that out-of-turn protection recovery. So 90% of the time, you're going to be getting crits. So between attacking out of turn and getting crits, you're looking at nearly 20% protection each time it occurs. Again, massive, massive durability for you in that protection recovery realm. Super great with all the teams that I mentioned earlier. If I don't have anything great, I will get the critical support as well. I prefer another option, though, over the critical support. Critical Over is pretty good. I do have this, but I prefer, what was it? Deadly Catalyst over Critical Over, personally. Not bad, but not amazing either. Fierce Persistence. I don't use this. I think it's stupid. If you use it and it works, kudos to you. Dark Loyalty. This is a great one if you are running a heavy dark side team. Again, I'm not using that very heavily. My dark side teams usually work with my build. I don't need it. Opportunistic Support. So this is what I usually prefer to get over critical support. Mostly because you can really only do one or the other in terms of protection build versus health build. I prefer building heavy on protection and then throwing in one of these to help out with health a little bit on the side as well. Defensive Formation we talked about earlier. Volatile Accelerator, Hyper Accelerator all suck. Power has its place. I get them once and that's it. I don't ever use them though. Insatiable, not good. Don't worry about it. Vitality we talked about before with punching up at the very beginning of it. It's good to punch up. That's about it. Voluntary Vanguard can be useful in certain circumstances. Probably my #1 top favorite Datadisk, and this is the secret, folks. I alluded to it earlier. Zealous Ambition. I wouldn't jump on the low one. Hold out. If you're getting into Sector 5, maybe even Sector 4, and all you've gotten is the green one, the rare, you might want to get it. I usually hold out, and then I'm able to get the epic one. This is ridiculous. You can run a healer-based team with Night Sisters. I mentioned earlier, all the support characters, all the healers, they will blow people up. Unfortunately, I don't have a video of Padme doing this, but Padme will frequently round kick people to the face for 250,000 damage. It's ridiculous. She'll do it on her basic too, because this is all based off of their max health. This is the #1 underrated data disk in my opinion. Get this yesterday, folks. It is amazing. It is incredibly good. Hone skills sucks. Decay critical meter sucks. So there you have it. So folks, if you don't have a top tier amazing team, you could still get away with running the build that I talked about here. Run all of the data disks that have out attack bonuses. Run all of the ones that have critical bonuses, if possible. And then look for either massively overpowered, if you're doing more of a buff heavy team, critical over, if you got more of a critical heavy team, or deadly catalyst, if you really want to maximize everything. And you're just gonna crush people. You're gonna crush it. No worries at all. Super amazing. All right, folks. Hope you enjoyed our video today, everybody. If you did, appreciate it if you give me a thumbs up, give me a like there. Also, feel free to subscribe and turn on notifications if you guys would like to check out more of our videos that we have in the future and or in the past. Last but not least, if you would like to join the live GAC matches and discussion, you guys can join the Discord as well as Twitch. Links will be down below. All right, everybody. Catch you next time.